Good afternoon to all our listeners and viewers of the NDC Heartbeat podcast. Happy to have all of you on this afternoon. Those who are on WeFM, Vibes FM, Spice Capital Radio, Talk Grenada, and indeed those who are on the NDC Facebook platform, and also those who are on YouTube. We want to welcome you to yet another Heartbeat. We are doing this program pre-recorded from Atlanta, where myself and Senator Thomas, we are attending the International Forum on Understanding Global Poverty. And we will bring to you several interviews and make several presentations which were at the conference so that you can understand what has been happening in that forum. So thank you for being part of the Heartbeat today, and please enjoy the program for today. Mr. Shockley, this week's event has been dubbed probably one of the most important events that you've held for a very long time. This is the 6th annual event that you're having, and you are the founder, president, and CEO of Caring for Others. And this International Forum on Understanding Global Poverty, the landscape of global poverty, is something that you have championed for many years. What are your thoughts on this week's International Forum, and how are you feeling at this time?
Well, I am grateful to you all who took the time out of your busy schedule to come to the Poverty Forum. I'm also grateful that most of the countries, including Grenada, has taken up the challenge to work with the community in helping to eradicate poverty. One of the things I always try to say is that charity begins at home. So we all have to work within our home and help to do the things that the people need so that we could eradicate poverty to where it is. So this is the first beginning of the discussion and us taking on the challenges.
Mhm. Well, this year's conference saw big names.
Yes.
People like Will McKinney, who is the senior advisor of the Office of Public Engagement at the White House. You've had a CNN reporter as the moderator, Jamal Simmons. You even have had Queen Olori Omar from Nigeria.
Yes.
And the list goes on. Republican James Beverly, Georgia House Minority Leader. You've had folks from South Africa, Antigua, the entire Caribbean. You have had just so many individuals at this international conference. How do you go about pulling all of these well-known, respected international figures in your conference?
Well, the first thing, believing that God see the need and directed me where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I reached out to those who I thought may want to hear, understand, and do something that is right.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone that I've reached out to agreed to come and listen, understand, and do whatever else they had to do.
Well, it was a very touching moment indeed, especially when Tim Thibault and his wife made their presentation. And then, if you thought that was great, then you have had Rich Paul,
Yes.
well-known international figure. You have to explain, where do you get this energy from? And you have all these strong international contacts. A woman of whom you have said before, you have grown up in humble beginnings, but you have rise to the top. You have even visited the White House many a times under many presidents, and now under President Biden. What drives you? What gives you that passion?
Well, as you could see what was out there today.
Oh, well, we ain't even come to the day yet.
When you see what was out there today, that's what gives me the energy. And it's not about a show, it's about doing seriously God's work. the work that He has called me to do. And I have more energy every time I step out than when I sit down.
Hmm. Well, as you alluded to today, um, this has been mind blowing, and I feel very privileged to accompany our minister responsible for social development, the Honorable Gloria Thomas, to be part of her delegation to participate in this. And she herself participated in the giving out of so many things that you have been able to acquire via the cooperation that you've had with so many large companies. And to see the large number of vehicles just waiting to come in to be given these items, this has to be a special blessing in itself.
It
Giving.
is. It is, but this is a very small one.
Wow, this
This
is
is
a small one,
this is a small one. We
but there were
normally
over 300 vehicles coming.
yes, we normally do
Wow.
2,000 and more.
Wow. How do you
So
manage this?
it takes a lot of planning. We are planning right now for the Christmas holidays.
Uh huh.
And you have to plan a year ahead as God gives us the strength to do it. And I'm also dealing with a sick husband who has a bad heart
Oh
problem, been
my
married for
goodness.
39 years. But
Wow.
the goodness of God is giving me the strength to do whatever. I see need and I try to help. You know, I always tell the story of the days when my mother, my sister, we would stand in the line to get cornmeal
Mm-hmm.
and powder milk when
Wow.
the British would come to
Yes.
give that to
Mm-hmm.
make porridge. And that's all we had.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And
And
I don't want the people to stand in line to get cornmeal. I want them to have a good meal.
yeah, absolutely. The things that I've seen that were given out today is just really top quality food items. And the number of packages each family received was just outstanding.
They have enough food to last for a month,
Wow. This is
as well
really
as household goods.
to witness this experience and to understand the planning that goes with it. It's really quite an experience for us.
Yes, and I am grateful I could do it, and I look forward to doing such a program with you in Grenada.
Well, thank you.
I am really looking forward for a great partnership and us doing things together. It's lifting people up. We're not giving our hands out, we're giving our hands up,
Wonderful.
and that is very important.
Wonderful indeed.
Mm.
Well, I want to thank you so very much, first of all, for your invitation.
Yes.
Regrettably, our Prime Minister was unable to be here at this international forum due to other pressing matters, but he ensured that the delegation was headed by a minister who sits in the cabinet. So she has a very clear understanding now as to what went on at the forum and to experience what it is like to find solutions
Yes.
to the issue of poverty over the entire world.
Entire world
Yeah,
is suffering and
yeah,
we have to bring solution.
yeah.
However, kindly tell Prime Minister I'm giving him 1 year's notice for next year.
Well, I,
And
I,
I want to see him here next year.
well, I shall convey your message, and I know very well that Senator Thomas will equally carry
Convey
your
that.
message.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
But
But
it was such a pleasure having you all here.
thank
Really
you.
a pleasure. And there's so much work to be done. And I know with your team, and you know your hearts are right. And I know you all are going to work towards the goal that we have, eradicating poverty. Whatever I could do in the meanwhile, please feel free to call me.
Well, thank you so very much. We too have our own share of poverty in Grenada and
Yeah.
the rest of the Caribbean and the world. But we want to thank you sincerely for your commitment in working with Grenada and helping to eradicate our own poverty, which exists. And I'm just so happy that our Minister for Social Development was here to experience and to learn the techniques
Yes.
of dealing with poverty.
Mhm.
Yeah, and many a times it can be a mindset.
It's a mindset, but here, however you want to put it, We gotta
It
have it.
is what it
It is
is.
what it is.
But
Yes.
moreover, I also want to place on record our thanks and appreciation for your financial contribution,
Yes.
which you made to Grenada,
Yes.
for us to start the process
Yes.
of eradicating poverty.
Yes.
So, Mrs. Shockley, thank you so very
God
much.
bless him and
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
am looking forward to working with you and
Absolutely.
some of my board members and friends want to come to Grenada. You know, this has caused us to have so many openings. So many people want to go to all these various
Yep.
countries, and I have
Mhm.
a list of everybody who's
Oh,
signing up.
well, the thing is, I don't know where you'd have the time to visit all these
I have
countries,
to. I
but
have no choice.
good luck. Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Okay. This is one of the warehouses which the organization has. It is just over 100,000 square feet of space.
Men's warehouse, men's warehouse, men's warehouse. Because all this gotta be processed. This is a suits and shirts and pants and all of this gotta be processed.
Senator Thomas, the conference on understanding global poverty. What are your thoughts on this week's conference?
Well, thank you for having me on the Heartbeat this day. I am so happy to be part of the program and to just share some thoughts. Um, I must say that this experience over the last few days has really motivated me to commit myself even further in
Mhm.
addressing the whole question of poverty.
Mhm.
When you listen to the different presenters from the different countries and so on, you realize that we are not too much in bad shape, but we could do so much more to address the whole problem and to eradicate poverty. We have signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals, which
Mhm.
say to eradicate poverty by 2030.
Mhm.
And I think with the exposure we have gotten over the last few days and the commitment for support, we will be well on our way to achieving that goal.
Right. Now, there were two presenters who seem to have had quite an impact on the audience, Tim Tebow and his wife Demi.
Yeah.
They are well known international figures. Tim himself has been a well known NFL football player, and
Mhm.
he has rose to the top. He has earned his way, so to speak.
Mhm.
And then came Rich Paul. Which one of them impacted you most?
I think it's Thibaut.
Thibaut.
Yeah, yes,
Hmm.
yes. Um, when he made his presentation, something that really stuck with me is the fact that he's really God fearing.
Hmm.
One.
Yep.
And two, he said that after chasing after all these accolades and um,
There's recognitions.
yes,
Yeah.
all the different
Oh, I tell you.
recognition, all the
Incredible.
recognitions and the championships and what have you.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, he felt sort of empty. You know,
Hmm.
he said that all these things, he realized all these things did not matter to him, but helping people is what he should have been focusing on, the
Yes.
most vulnerable people. So he said,
Hmm.
people see him as a VIP, a very important person,
Hmm.
but he said he was trying to help, and he's now on his way to helping the VIP, the very impoverished people.
Yep.
Yes, and I think that was very profound, and that stayed with me, because sometimes we are so caught up in
Hmm.
successes and we are so caught
Hmm.
up in achievements and doing well, we forget the people who really needs us, and I think that is a lesson for us to really focus on.
Absolutely. So
Mm.
indeed. And himself and his wife, they totally join towards ensuring that they do
Yeah.
their bit throughout the world
Yes, yes,
in
yes.
helping people
Hmm.
in need,
Yeah.
folks who are impoverished,
Yes.
etc. But what about Rich Paul, another simple individual who has risen up to prominence financially and otherwise. He is well known among young people throughout the world, and his story was very, very touching, very
Yes.
embracing
Yeah.
indeed.
He spoke about staying in the father shop, working with the father shop, and he said he learned everything from the shop. And
Yeah.
that made me really smile.
Hmm.
And he said he looked at the children that come to buy, what they will buy.
Yeah.
He look at the elderly, they come to the shop, what they will prefer to have. And he said he used to be ordering the candies for the shop,
Yeah.
and he used to order what he liked. And then
Exactly.
he realized that the children, it wasn't selling because the children
Yeah.
did not like it.
They had another
So
view.
the
Yeah.
point he was making is that you always have to be observant. You have to be more cognizant of the needs of people and not your own personal needs. And you have to be very open,
Mhm.
open to embracing all sorts of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things indeed, which he also mentioned, was the fact that he did not have the opportunity to attend college, university,
Yes, he didn't need that
but
much.
that did not prevent him from reaching to higher heights
Mm.
and accomplishing great things. And all that he really needed to have learned in life, he learned at home and
And
in
in the
his
shop.
father's shop.
Yeah.
He understood how people perceive him, how people shop,
Mhm.
how they look at life, and he got a lot of experiences just
Just
being
being in the
in
shop.
that little shop.
Mhm.
And that can, say a lot about someone's upliftment. But you are in Atlanta now, and today, Saturday, because this is a pre-recorded program, you have had the experience to see how Mrs. Shockley and her team has served the community here in Atlanta, serving over 300 persons in vehicles,
Mhm.
and the manner in which they organized it. What sort of message has this given you, and how can you probably implement some of this within your own ministry?
Well, I see that experience here this morning as one that we can focus on in terms of seeing how we could implement something back home. I know we won't have people driving in into vehicle to come to
Yeah. Mhm.
to collect, but in terms of the organization, in terms of getting the goods prepared and waiting, if we're doing something home like that, we may have to have a number system because most of the people will come on foot, and to just have things done in an orderly way. And we can do it, say, by parish, and make sure that we reach out to to most persons as possible.
Mhm.
Yes, so I think it was really um, a, a learning point for me with the distribution here this morning.
Yes, it
Hmm.
did. It was. I was taken aback at the number of vehicles,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
looked at the lines,
Come in, yeah.
and after they say, oh, it was just over 300 vehicles coming,
Yes.
and the number of items that were given to
Hmm.
each family, it was really striking. But moreover, what really stood out for me is the ability of the organization to access all these items from the business community, not just in Atlanta, but throughout the
Well,
United
yeah.
States.
Hmm.
And while a lot of these companies, they would give generously, they of course have the opportunity to claim back on their
The taxes,
taxes.
yeah.
So giving is a big thing
Hmm.
with companies in the United States.
Yeah.
Probably this is a lesson maybe we should share with the business community in
Mm,
Grenada.
yeah.
The more you give is
Yeah.
better for you.
Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to the Shockley's visit to Grenada. I
Mhm.
think when she visits, I will get some service organization, NGOs,
Mhm.
and other such like-minded people to meet with her, so she
Mhm.
can, really share her experience and
Mhm.
also to motivate and to encourage us to be part of this Caring for Others initiative. Her program is already in the Caribbean, but we're not part of it here in Grenada. And I think getting her to be a partner with us will be very, very important. Yes, we address some of the things that she's already doing, and I don't see it as a duplication of efforts, but I see it as something that will augment what we are already doing, because we always have people in need, and we have to really put resources together to address needs in a more concerted way. So I'm really looking forward to her visit, and how we could build that partnership, and how we could really address the whole question of poverty in Grenada.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed. Because, well, to have her give confirmation that she will visit Grenada, it's a real big thing for Grenada,
Yes,
because she goes to so many countries, from
yes.
Africa to the Caribbean to Asia, South America, just, establishing
Mhm.
groups who will represent the entity, and she provide the goods and so forth for them, and they in turn distribute to people in need. This is quite a mind blowing experience, and we want to congratulate her. But let me thank you, Minister, for being part of the Heartbeat today. I hope that we did not take away too much of your time in Atlanta. But it's good of you to, first of all, attend the conference and to witness what is happening in the world of poverty and how it is being handled by an international agency, and how they go about, first of all, raising revenue, encouraging large businesses to give so that they in turn can now share with those most in need.
Apart from the whole question of poverty and providing food and shelter and clothing for people, there is a program, the MECE program, which deals with the life skills, education, job training for employment, micro loans to allow people to build their capacity and to take charge of their life. I think this is a very, very important component of this Caring for Others initiative. And I am very much drawn to this aspect, because I believe when we empower people, we educate people, we give people skills, that in itself helps towards eradicating poverty. And we'll be exploring with Ms. Shockley the possibility of providing some support in this area so that we can assist our people to take charge of the life, as I say. Um, she mentioned to me in our discussion that the area of entrepreneurship is an area that she will work on, and we include women in that area to help them build their culinary skills and so on, so that they can start selling things, start developing small businesses, and taking the situation of poverty, facing the situation of poverty head on, so that their lives could be improved. And I think this is a very important part. Under that same program too, there is the possibility of providing fishing equipment, sewing machines, agricultural equipment, and so on, to help the ordinary folks better themselves and help them to get a life of their own.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator. These are all just some of the so many different components of this international organization that seeks to alleviate poverty throughout the world. But I'm happy that Grenada has participated at the level of minister to the cabinet, so that we can advance the process. Because as she rightfully put it in another dialogue that we had with her, one of the main problems she faces with the Caribbean small islands is the bureaucracy,
Yeah, yes.
the slowness of getting things
Yes.
accomplished, even at the customs area. So I'm happy that you were there so that you understand clearly what her concerns,
Yeah.
and the need for us to correct this particular matter.
And apart from the conference itself, the interaction that we had with one on one in networking also lend to enriching our experience because we shared contact information with most of the participants,
Mhm.
and we share experiences also as to how we do things in our various countries and regions. And I think I've picked up on a few things that I will have to revisit when I go home in terms of how we do things and operate in certain aspect of social development. So I think apart from the conference itself, with the content and the sharing, the individual interactions were very, very, very enriching as well.
Minister, I know that you would had missed a very important session that you would have liked to be at with the formal opening of the Chinese houses in Grenada. What are your thoughts?
Well, well, yes, I'm sorry that I was not home to be part of it, but we had our discussions, and Minister Andy and I worked to ensure that things will run off along with the Housing Authority. And happy to know that even if I was not home as the Housing Minister, that things were able to happen. Prime Minister and the Chinese ambassador cut the ribbon, and there was a great program there, and some of the potential recipients was there for the opening, and I think I think it was a great ceremony, and I am happy that we start moving on with the housing distribution of the houses.
Great.
Current was the first venue, and as soon as we finish with Current, we'll move on to another location, and in due course, all the houses will be distributed in short order.
Great. Well, thank you so very much. Of course, you were in Atlanta attending to other equally important matters.
Yes, sir.
So you're forgiven by your constituents. At this time, I would want to take the opportunity to share with our listening and viewing audience the presentation made by Will McKinney, who is the Senior Advisor in the Office of Public Engagement at the White House. And thereafter, we have had the presentations from Tim Thibault and also Rich Paul. So thank you again, Minister, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just really honored to have the opportunity to bring greetings from President Biden and Vice President Harris, and to talk about both, what we're doing to address hunger and diet-related disease and health outcomes here in the United States. But also want to mention, even though I have a lot of updates on the domestic hunger front, just want to pay notice to the fact that we have so many incredible foreign dignitaries here, global dignitaries in this room, and addressing hunger globally is, of course, such a huge commitment from this president, from this administration, especially in light of some of the global conflict that we've seen that has really impacted the supply of food. And so just wanted to start off with that note. And I'm really here today because President Biden has made ending hunger and building healthier communities a priority for his administration. As folks may know, 1 in 8 households in the United States experience food insecurity or lack of access to an affordable, nutritious diet. That means 44.2 million people live in or lack access to an affordable, nutritious diet in food insecure households, including 7.3 million children. As the president has often said, no child should ever go to bed hungry, regardless of their zip code, regardless of where they live. And no parent should die of a disease that can be prevented. And this is not a political issue to this administration. It's truly a moral one, and it's really driven by the president's faith and his humanitarian view on these issues.
She's an entrepreneur, an influencer, and you can tell by the look of her, a model. She's a philanthropist, and she utilizes her platforms as Miss South Africa and Miss Universe. Did you hear me? Miss Universe. Woo! Yeah. Oh. To educate and inspire on a global scale, she founded the Unbreakable campaign to educate and empower women. She lends her philanthropic vision to the Tim Tebow Foundation and is the founder of 153 Jewelry. Are you wearing some of your jewelry today?
Not today, actually. Should have,
Well,
Bad marketing.
I know. Gotta do better.
Well, she figured today she's here talking about items and things that change lives. And so her jewelry will go to your website.
Perfect.
The most impressive jewel that we'll ever wear or care for is all of the jewels that are the boys and the girls we get to care for. Not
I
the we get to
love
wear.
that. Let's give him a round of applause for that. So you already know she's married to Tim, and we know he's a two-time national champion, Heisman Trophy winner, first-round NFL draft pick, former professional baseball player, four-time New York Times best-selling author, speaker, football analyst, but most passionate about the Tim Tebow Foundation. The mission is really to bring faith, hope, and love to those needing a brighter tomorrow, especially in their darkest hour of need. The Tim Tebow Foundation currently is fighting for people who can't fight for themselves in over 70 countries and counting through 4 primary ministry focuses with 16 initiatives. Now, there's one more thing I gotta mention, because this just lets you know they're just down to earth, real folks. They live in Jacksonville, Florida. And they have 3 dogs. I love this. Chunk, who I have a feeling is a chunker.
That's right.
Why would you think that?
With a name like that doggy's got to be a little fat face.
No doubt.
And then Kobe and Paris.
That's right. You forgot one thing.
What's that?
He's also a gator. I just have to say that since we're here in Georgia.
Okay, wait a minute.
You're the host of Georgia.
The reason
And by default, I am too.
but the reason I didn't mention it is because I'm a bird dog. University of Louisville Cardinals, and what else? Georgia Bulldogs. Woof, woof, woof.
I learned a lot. That was my Harvard. That was my Clark Atlanta, my Morehouse, because I didn't go to college. So ultimately, it allowed me to develop as a young man. My dad was really big on just integrity and morals and principle, and we was a no excuse type of environment for us and my siblings. And so I think that probably had the biggest impact just as a foundation. And then throughout, there were several different situations that were impactful, both good and bad. Well, not necessarily bad, but learning through experience of what not to do again.
Can you share?
I can share some. I
don't expect you to share.
Well,
but just a little bit.
Yeah, growing up for me, I was just talking about upstairs, we weren't allowed to really plan ahead. So every day I left my house, the goal was to get back home. And so you could just imagine what that day was like. And making it to 16 was amazing. Making it to 21 was like turning 50. And so it was just a different world for me. So to be sitting where I sit today, I don't take none of it for granted. And I also I never get really too high or too low, if that makes sense, because I think how I grew up just gave me this balance, this perspective of, you've seen a lot. You've seen people working at Ford and GM and having this family that was really nice, and, going to Six Flags every year, and then the next year they had nothing. It was just a real traumatizing, dramatic scenario in a lot of ways, every day, pretty much.
When you look back at your friends, you said, making it to 16 was a major thing. What happened to your friends?
Some died, some went to jail, most went to jail, very few of them were killed, and I like to say they kind of died in 2 ways. They either actually killed, or they lost their freedom forever. I deal with that a lot right now. I'm still in touch with a lot of my friends. I still support them. They're never coming home, so they only get to see me on the TV. And it's tough because there's a lot of lost people out there. And again, I'm blessed to have my dad in my life, in which I respected him so much that when I was out there with them, you know, I had sense enough to know how far to go, right? And him allowed me to understand that not to be a follower, and me having this, I didn't necessarily have a need to fit in, so it allowed me to be like, I'm not getting in this car, or you guys go ahead and learn and hear about what happened the next morning type of thing. And so I'm thankful for that, I really am.
How much do you think poverty had to do with why the young men who were your friends got into the trouble they got into?
Oh, it had a ton to do with it. But also poverty is a mindset too. You know, you start to submit to your environment, and you start to feel as if this is it, which is part of the reason why I wrote my book. Because I wanted people to understand that I too went through some of the same things, if not worse, than they had it. Because I also had it the other way. I had friends that were living in the suburbs, but felt like they needed to be where we were at to be accepted. And they were the first ones to go because they don't know where the landmines are. So it's like flying over to a war and not being trained properly, and then boom, you know, they were literally the first ones to go. And so that's a tough thing. And a really tough thing about, now that I'm thinking about this, you know, there was times where those same guys were used as the crash dummies without even understanding how they were being positioned, you know, because they don't, and it's the same, I mean, this was just it's like this, we really played Squid Game before it was ever a television show. And I oftentimes speak about how traumatic it is for the people that grew up in these neighborhoods like I grew up in. You're fighting a war, but you don't understand the war or why you're fighting this war. And a lot of times the war is outside, but then that starts to seep within. So now every day you look in that mirror, you're really fighting a war with yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't understand the importance of decision making, the importance of you know, having great habits, and it's okay to say no to certain things, and it's okay not to be so-called accepted for, you know, and then you start to just implement your appearance and going without financial stability and things like that. These are all things that are built on top of this foundation. And your mind, why I say it's a mindset, is because your mind starts to accept this world that you're living in. And I was blessed to actually have it the other way around. You know, my mom got really strung out on crack cocaine when I was like about 4. And I was so blessed that my dad explained it to us in a different manner. Then I was also blessed that my mom respected us enough to never allow us to see it. So I don't really have a visual. I kind of understood at 7 or 8 what was going on, and kind of jumped from household to household. You know, you hearing, you know, back then it was long distance phone calls, and my grandmother would be talking to my aunt back in California, and you know, the topic at that time in the 80s it was such a high thing and heightened thing, and then, you know, the family members that were succumbing to it, and that was tough for us. And I was the youngest of my siblings. That was really tough. But I just always had a mental toughness. I think that's the one muscle that you probably can't necessarily work out in a fitness gym, but it's the strongest one. It's the one you need to be the strongest in. And so I kind of knew that at a very young age. It was some trouble, you know, when you're in these environments. Hurt people.
Yes.
And it was oftentimes I had to deflect, because, you know, when you on the bus or you're at the bus stop and you kind of talking about one another, and then it was so bad that you turn negative conversation into a game.
Playing the dozens.
Right, but it's a negative thing that doesn't really make sense, you know, because you're not giving dozens of compliments, you're not giving dozens of you're not sharing ideas a dozen times, you know. it's a negative, it's a real negative thing that you just so happen to think is okay to do because everyone else did it and you do it too. So it was something that, again, I'm kind of glad I went through it the way I went through it, because where I sit today, it allows me to have a balance. And when I'm in these boardrooms, I'm in these negotiations, honestly, I feel like I have such an advantage because I know these people haven't necessarily been through half, not even a quarter of what I've been through. And so their worst day is like a roller coaster ride for me at Six Flags. So that's helped me. I really turn things that you would think would be of detriment into assets for me today.
But why do you say lucky me? Because see, when
I'm being very sarcastic.
That's what I was getting ready to
Yeah, but listen, Lucky Me is my favorite Jay-Z song, and and if you listen to the hook of that song, he talks about the fact that he was told since he was 4 years old that everything that glitters ain't gold, and now that he's arrived, to see those truths unfold, close his eyes and the world so cold. Like it's those bars. It's not the title of the song. It was that message within the song. And I used to ride and listen to that song on repeat. And I had the idea of Lucky Me being the title of my book before I even had a reason to write the book. I also have the second title too for the next book. But nevertheless,
We're not going to hear the second half.
yeah, it's chances to make champions. But if you read the book, it ends at a point to where it talks about my childhood up to meeting a certain guy at the airport, and then the next we'll talk about. People take a lot of chances on everything and everybody but themselves. Oftentimes, just looking for that validation from people instead of really finding it within. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, I think the Lucky Me aspect of it was, again, also just playing on the naysayers. There's always something, oh, you met this guy, and that's why you're successful. You're lucky. I was kind of like being very sarcastic. In addition to, I was lucky to have my dad in my life the way he was in my life. My dad was married when he had me, but he was, sometimes somebody can be in the house and still not be present. Or my dad wasn't in the house, but every day he was at that store, and I used to work in the store, and I learned math and marketing and supply and demand from selling at an early age when I probably shouldn't have been selling, but beer, wine, and cigarettes, and playing lottery numbers, and in negotiating these deals I negotiate now, there's no pressure like playing someone's lottery number. This person could be, Miss Johnson. She played 858, 50-50 in 2012, 2 hours straight, 2 hours back. She's been playing this number for 6 months. And then now I'm on a lottery machine, it's 725, the machine come up at 729, I have to get her number in. She's 3 people behind in line, and here I am, 10 years old on this lottery machine. If she gets home and one of those numbers are off and that number hit, that's a real, now that's pressure. Because I got to walk past her house and get home. That's real pressure. So my dad, used to let us go into the bank with the money, and you deposit it, and then you had video games, so I would know that it's 1 quarters, and then also you had to separate back then the food stamps from the cash. And then we would go to the wholesale place, and he would let us pick out the candy. And so the first time I did this, I'm picking out what I like, but it didn't sell. And so I start watching what the kids would buy, because when you open a store in the morning like that, there were so many different customers. You had the people that want just a really, really strong, hot cup of coffee. They were kind of the adults. And then the high school kids, they wanted something to make their breath smell good, probably water. Where the younger kids, they wanted nothing but sweets, And so having to differentiate that. And then, here come the Frito-Lay man, and he's positioning down Cool Ranch Doritos, and learning, watching him sell this to us and trying out the product. So I literally learned everything I do now, I learned in that store. I didn't learn at Harvard or Penn or Michigan or Ohio State or none of these universities. I learned in my dad's store. So that I was really lucky to have that. And I was also lucky to have a community that held me accountable too. I couldn't just do any and everything I wanted to do, right? I was reprimanded by pretty much anybody on the street. And so that was a blessing for me. I was really lucky. So there was a lot of, people kind of use the word luck in different ways. It's layered for me. And so I gave you an example of a few layers of word luck.
So you deal with young men, and are you representing women too?
Oh yeah.
So you deal with young men and young women in sports who grew up like you.
Very much so.
How do you make sure that the success they are getting ready to go into is long term and builds generational wealth?
Well, I think the most important way to try to make sure, because everybody don't listen.
Hard heads makes a soft mind.
And I was speaking to a client of mine the other day, and he's Trey Young when he's here, and we were just talking, and I was explaining to him, it's so tough being an athlete. It really is, and the dependence that you have, the pressure that you have, and these kids have to make their most important decisions at their youngest age. Whereas most of us in here, most people start making their actual money at 40, maybe 35 nowadays. You can do it a little earlier, but used to be at the age of 50, you to be really positioned, right? Mm-hmm. I just try to really focus on infrastructure, building great habits, having real self-discipline, the importance of saying no. I think that's extremely important. And then, everyone focuses on the money, but these guys don't really understand what they're actually making, right? If you make $100 million, you don't actually have $100 million today. And you actually get paid out over 5 years for the most part. So that makes it even worse because you can't necessarily take that money and invest it and diversify your portfolio. Hopefully that compounds. You're doing it annually. But even if you make $25 million a year, $20 million a year, it's really like 6, But you spend it as if it was 30. And so when people talk about, how do these guys go broke? And really, in their case, every million is really only 100,000 because if you're taking care of 10 people, you got to allocate 100,000 to each person, pretty much. So break it down from that perspective is really not a lot. And we were just having this discussion. I was saying to him that my nephew, if he decides to go pro this year, whatever he goes pro, he doesn't have one dependent. No sister, no brother that he has to spend with his mom and dad. All of his money is actually all of his money, and I don't think that's ever happened before in the history of sports.
But it's not all his because you're going to get a percentage.
No, it is. I'm going to earn mine. It's still all his, It's just, and again, you get these positions. I mean, I'm in the same position as an athlete, so I take care of my family. It's what I've been doing this since I was 18 years old. I'm 43 now. It's a long time. But part of that is survivor's remorse too. You have this. It's like you carry these things with you.
Success guilt.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't necessarily have to, but it's part of it. So I'd rather be able to than not to be able to. But honestly, my family they're pretty good with me. But I'm pretty stern too. I just don't like this. I got a baby face, but I'm pretty tough.
Well, people in poverty face some really systematic barriers.
100%, yeah.
And how your dad helped you confront them.
He did, yeah.
But what are the things that we need to do to help people break through this barrier?
Well, first of all, I think people need to want more in life. I think there's a lot of complacency when it comes to our people in general. I was talking to a friend of mine, and her son didn't want to work at Target. And I asked her if I could speak to him. And we've been friends since the 7th grade. And I asked her if I could speak to him, and she said, sure. And I said, look, why don't you want to work at Target? You know, he didn't have a great answer for that. He didn't know why. I know why. It's because you don't look at it as a good job. And I said to him, well, you should approach it this way. Start off bagging at the end of the cash register. Or maybe even just shipping and receiving. I said, but then from there, go to the next area. Maybe you go on the cash register this time. And while you're doing this, find who your manager is. Take your manager to lunch, maybe once every 2 weeks. Have a real conversation about them. Don't talk about you, because successful people like to talk about themselves a lot. So talk about them, right? Ask a million questions. What that's going to do is that's going to allow him to go, or her to go to their supervisor and say, you know what, that young man is really nice. We maybe need to reposition him to this. Then when you get to that position, just repeat this. And while you're doing this, learn how the actual business actually operates. And if you do this, then you'll eventually end up probably running a region, Target store. And then once you do that, then when you get an opportunity to go to the off-sites and things like that, now you meet the next person, right, higher up in the rankings, and you kind of repeat the same thing over. Before you know it, you'll be positioned to where maybe you have stock options, maybe your bonus is different, your pay structure is totally different. But you will never understand that if you only focus on this part of the job and you're allowing it not to see where you can actually go to. And I think that's just through the lens of education. I think a lot of us are uneducated on how corporate America works.
It's a pleasure to have you on the Heartbeat program.
Thank you.
Wonderful indeed. This is Shabaki Fernandez. She is the International Director, Caring for Others, and she works closely with Mrs. Ursuline Richmond Shockley, the founder, president, and CEO of Caring for Others. You have done a remarkable job in managing the hundreds of visitors who have come in for this international conference. And first of all, let me extend our thanks on behalf of our Minister Thomas for, first of all, inviting Grenada and also welcoming us in this very special way to Atlanta to be part of this conference. How do you do it? This has been quite an exercise. Quite an exercise. Share with us your thoughts about the conference, first of all. Today's activity with the what looked like 300-400 vehicles coming to receive parcels and so forth, needy persons, and how does the organization function?
Okay. Well, when it comes to the program of itself, over the past few days, we've had a think tank. And with this think tank, we had Minister Thomas from Grenada. We had Ambassador here representing Grenada. We also had ministers from Antigua, Guyana. We also had from Nigeria, South Africa, and St. Vincent, the heads of the various departments. With this, the whole idea of the think tank was to have everyone get together, because we realized that poverty is a worldwide issue. And how we can work along, because we realized that just speaking to Ambassador, that he and Minister Thomas, they're very passionate about their people in Grenada. And they saw this as something that they can work through with, because it's just when they see, they're like, you know what, this is something we want to get onto to make sure that our citizens in Grenada, that everything is good. I can tell you with the think tank, they came up with solutions and ideas of things that they want to see, because like under their portfolios, what they're looking at with ministers, that how you connect the diaspora with Grenada to make sure that they can have help and that the government and everything can really meet the needs of their people. What minister focuses on housing, you have gender equity and so forth. So even with programs that we've looked at are things of what can be done for women, things of what can be done for men. Like we have microeconomic centers and grants and so forth. And so they've begun to focus on that. In addition to that, understanding the situation of what they speak about gender and equity. They also looking into the elderly because ministers also spoken an ambassador concerning how it is that they can work along with their people, ensure that the elderly are also taken care of and whatever their needs are. So at that think tank, it was to come up with solutions and turn those solutions into actions. For then we had the poverty forum. At the poverty forum, it was also to highlight these and to see even more so how our collaborations can go. Also to see the situations in every country that was represented there, and most importantly, what we can learn from each other and how we can help each other. Right now, their focus is on getting back to Grenada and ensuring that what is done here we have replicated to help the citizens and all the constituents. When it came to like today's episode, what we had was this activity whereby persons are giving food. There's a line that some people sleep and literally park and sleep just to ensure they're among the first in the line. The line goes for miles and miles. We had over 300 people today. We gave out food, we gave out fresh greens, clothing. Some of them received cases of drinks, toilet tissue, paper towel, and so forth. And your ministers here were all a part of that from early this morning in the cold. Because, as a Caribbean people, we get sun. But your ministers were here working hard. And they said, you know what? This is what we want to do back in Grenada. This is what we're committed to do. Like, even we've had No Bare Souls events whereby we give out shoes and stuff. So what I can say is that the people in Grenada are in excellent hands. Because with caring for others and the support of your Minister Thomas and Ambassador Forrester right here, that I'm telling you, it's like the world is open, the hands are out, and we can work together to ensure that the needs of those in poverty are met and to ensure that dignity is restored to all who need it.
Great. Well, thank you so very much for
You're
this
welcome.
presentation. From the conference and from the presentations by your international esteemed guests,
Yes.
what would you say, stood out for you?
What stood out for me was the ones on agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, it's how passionate each nation was about ensuring that their people are properly represented.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, what I loved about it is that we looked at various factors from agriculture, from gender, from housing, then also to ideas for children like STEM programs and so forth, how technology can assist them. Because we know that already with COVID and then with poverty, many don't have access to tablets and these kinds of things. So that is what I loved about it. It's the fact that we were able to see various areas because it's not a one size fit all.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it's like your ministers were able to say, this is what our people need. This is how we would like to partner to assist them, I mean. And, and when we just heard that, we were like, this is fantastic. And we look forward to visiting Grenada and to making everything a reality and to bringing the programs there and to working with Ambassador Forrester and Minister Thomas.
Well, I know that yourself and Mrs. Shockley has a very tight schedule for the rest of the year. Africa sometime,
Yes.
Antigua, Guyana, St. Vincent. I trust that Grenada would be on that
Grenada
schedule
has to be on
before
that
the
schedule.
end of the year.
Yes, Grenada has to be on that schedule.
All
because
right.
we want to bring those programs there. And it's been a pleasure having you all here and knowing
Thank
that
you.
we have concrete solutions.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, Grenada, you're in good hands. Excellent hands.
Well, thank you so very much
You're
indeed.
most welcome.
Most
Thank you.
appreciated, and thank you for your very kind hospitality
You're
to
welcome.
myself and Senator the Honorable Gloria Thomas.
You're most welcome.
Thank you for being part of the Heartbeat.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for being part of the Heartbeat today, and look forward to having you next week again, where we will have another interesting program for you. Goodbye, and thank you.